again. We're going to make some cinnamon pull-aparts for breakfast this morning. There's a lot of cooking on this show. But you got to eat, right? So we're making cinnamon pull-aparts. It's a little easier version of cinnamon rolls for camping. Pretty good. What I've done here already before we started is I've got 2 cups of warm water and a half a cup of sugar in this bowl, and I activated a packet of yeast, active dry yeast. So that's all ready to go. And I'll show you as I go here what the other ingredients are. I'm going to put that in my large mixing bowl here. To that, I'm going to add 1/3 of a cup of oil. I'm going to add 1½ teaspoons of salt. I'm just going to eyeball that.
That's a half a tablespoon.
And I've got 1 powdered egg here. We've talked about powdered eggs in other episodes. I think they're just fine for cooking, and in fact I like them for eating too, so whatever your preference. But it's 1 egg. I'm just going to add that into this mixture. And I'm going to mix that up, all my wet ingredients. I've got 2/3 of a cup of powdered milk. So I'm going to add this a little bit at a time. We'll start with 2 cups of flour and about half of that milk. Go ahead and add the rest of that milk. Another cup of flour. We're going to add about 5 or 6 cups of flour by the time this is done. We're going to kind of see how the dough forms as we go, so I can't tell you exactly yet. We'll have to take a look when we get there. Pretty soon I'm not going to be able to use this mixer anymore. So we're going to have to get in there with our hands. That's the 4th cup of flour. Man, it's getting a little stiff for these mixer blades, so I'm going to switch to a spoon and a fork. Another cup of flour, this is number 5. Cup number 6, I'm going to add about half of it and see how that goes. I'm just going to get in there with my hands now. I feel like it still needs a little bit more, so I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of that. Oh yeah, we got some good dough going now. Get all that good stuff off my fingers and back into the dough ball here. Kind of pressing it together. Enough flour and all. Incorporate it into the dough. Another Dutch oven recipe because you can't bake on a propane stove.
Do you want me to get the coal started?
Yeah, why don't you do that? This guy's going to get some coal started. We're going to need about 350 degrees. So with our 12-inch oven, that's 10 on the bottom and 14 on the top. So he's going to do that plus a few extra.
You said 350 and paused. I was thinking he's going to say 350 coals. I was about to say, we don't have that.
That'd be a little bit. I'm going to let this rise. This guy's going to wait a minute on those coals because this has got to sit for about 30 minutes to rise up. Meanwhile, we'll start some coals and we'll show you what to do next. Thanks.
See you in a minute.
So out here in the woods, it can get a little chilly. So what I've done is I've heated up some water in a pan, and I put my dough in the bowl over the pan just so it'll rise properly. You need a little warmth to keep it going. So we need the cast iron preheated for this recipe. So this guy's already put 10 coals underneath that pot, and we got it warming up. We'll probably have to replace those 10 coals because they're going to burn a little quicker, but pot should be good and ready for our dough in just a minute. It's almost done rising.
So one thing with the fires and stuff like that, always remember is safety. As you probably saw earlier, I almost dropped a coal on my leg. They're not cold, even though they start to see. Move fast, move far, keep an eye on it. And a fire extinguisher nearby. Ours is behind the rocks. We actually have two. I have a bad history with fire. Fire does not like me. So remember on that, prep your coals, get your dough ready and all that. Prep it about 10 minutes before you think that you're going to need it. What's the word again?
What? Bellows?
Bellows. Bellow will cook your coals very quick. So if your dough's ready and your coals aren't, put some fire on it and hit that bellow. And put some air into it. And it will heat those coals up in like a minute to 2 minutes to the point where they're red hot. But you want them red hot because they're not all the way lit. They'll start dying off. Really annoying.
Okay, back to cooking. I've already sprayed this some. It's been cooking off here because we set this down to preheat, so I'm gonna put a little more nonstick spray on the bottom of this and on the sides. Remember, I've said in other videos, cast iron, when it's properly seasoned, which we'll show you in another video how to do that. When it's properly seasoned, it is a non-stick surface. But things like dough will stick to cast iron. So do a little non-stick spray and you're doing yourself a big favor. Okay, I brought everything over here to the campfire because that's where my pot is. I've got 1.5 cups of brown sugar, and I've got some cinnamon. Now my recipe calls for 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. We like a little extra cinnamon. I'm not going to measure this. I'm just going to put some cinnamon in there until we feel like it's the right amount. And I'm going to mix that in with the brown sugar.
$15 on top?
Yeah, we're going to do, I think it's 14 on top.
Alright, I'll put 15.
Yeah, you know, this is not an exact science with the heating. The numbers of coals that I give you are approximate. Depends on the size of your coals. It depends on the heat of the coals. So you play around with it. 10 on the bottom and 14 on top is about 350 degrees under ideal conditions. Camping, you never have ideal conditions, so you know, You're gonna have to play with it a little bit and keep checking your food as it cooks to make sure it's properly cooked.
Another thing to remember too is your climate. If it's 80 degrees out and sunny, not much wind, 14 top, 10 bottom, probably fine. If it's 60 degrees out and you got a slight wind, like we do here, it's probably about 65 right now, that's going to change it because the heat has to go down, but heat rises, cold falls. Right? So you're trying to heat up not just the top and the bottom, but you're trying to heat the sides. So that's why in one of our other videos we took it out, put it in the fire, put logs surrounding it that were hot, so then it heats those sides. For thicker things, that's the thing is you want to remember is those sides need to cook too. So ideal conditions, there's not really an ideal condition. Maybe 80 degrees, 0 wind, but that's very rare. There's certain things you can get, like you mentioned in other videos, like the cast iron, Dutch oven, stove top with the 3 walls that are steel, and the bottom that's steel that cuts the wind out, and you put the coals there and do that. That's an ideal condition, but it's not necessary.
That's right.
So this works well. Just watch it. Throw a few coals on. For the stuff that takes longer to cook, you're going to need more coals because they're not something that you throw on like on the oven when you turn to 350 and it stays at 350. The coals are going to burn and you got to watch them and stuff like that. And never just walk away and leave it unattended. Like, yeah, you can go off, do other stuff, let this cook, but don't leave campsite. You know, the wind comes by, blows some embers off of it, hits tinder, it's on the ground. You come back, you might not have a campsite, and you got some serious explaining to do.
That's right. Okay, so I've got my dough risen. I'm gonna flip it over here a little bit. I'm looking to make about 16 dough balls. I'm probably not going to end up with exactly 16. We're going to shoot for that. I'm going to take a little bit of dough, roll it into a ball. I've got now this should be a bowl of melted butter. We're out of butter, so we're making do with a little bit of vegetable oil.
I thought we weren't going to mention that.
We weren't going to mention that. So I'm going to dip it in the butter. I'm going to roll it in the cinnamon and brown sugar mixture. I'm going to put it right in the pot. And I'm going to keep doing that until I've used up all the dough. I might mention when we plan for cooking, we'll write up a whole menu on a grid for each day, and sometimes we stray from that, but then I have all my recipes collected for each meal, and we'll make a shopping list based on that for the total amounts of everything that we need. Now, a lot of that stuff we already have, like flour and sugar and that kind of thing, but so we'll check those things off that we already have, but then I know the total amounts for the whole week or the whole weekend or whatever your length of your camping trip is, and we'll buy based on that list. Unfortunately, I didn't do that with butter this time, so we ran out, but oil will work just fine. Butter might taste better, but whatever. Nope. bit generous with the cinnamon sugar here. Gonna make your rolls a little more tasty. Whoops, got the oil. I will say this is going to make a gooey mess in your cast iron, so be prepared for some scraping after this recipe. But they are going to be so delicious. I don't know if you can see, but the heat from those coals is already bubbling that oil and sugar and dough.
Tastiness. There's bubbling and tastiness.
So they are already starting to cook, which means I want to get this in there and get that temperature evened out top and bottom as soon as I can.
Want something.
Right. The remaining brown sugar here, I'm just going to sprinkle over the top of this whole thing. There's not very much left, which is a good sign. It means we got it all down in there in the dough. So. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. I think you can see mostly. Let me zoom in a little bit and get a look at that before it cooks.
You crushed the cinnamon.
I did. I landed on the cinnamon container. So that looks pretty good. We're going to put the lid on it. We're going to add the rest of the coals to the top. And once we get the rest of those coals on, the recipe says about 15 to 20 minutes. I've found that things take a little bit longer.
How many coals?
14.
14.
And I've found that temperatures are a little bit less than expected. So, you know, maybe we'll have Sky put about 16 on there if we have them. With a 15 to 20 minute cook, we shouldn't need to replace coals, but be prepared. You know, maybe throw a couple coals in there so you can keep that temperature up.
Another thing to remember on the coal thing too is if it's something where it's like, you know, hey, I need to keep that heat going, that's a coal. That's a wood coal, but I mean, it works. Not nearly as good as these type coals. What do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, you can use fire coals if you run out of charcoal. They don't provide the same kind of, you know, they'll cool much quicker than a charcoal briquette will. But in a pinch, they'll do the job. We've done that before when we need to bring the temperature up just a little bit. I think we're ready to check these. It's been about 20 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. We've checked them a couple times. And like I said, sometimes things take a little bit longer than your recipe says, but it's because of the air temperature, all those things that Sky mentioned earlier. So you definitely need one of these, by the way. This is a tool that you can buy at any of your outdoor stores or on Amazon. Amazon has everything. It's a great tool.
Don't quote us on that.
You can't take the lid off this thing without this. So, oh, those look great. I don't know if you can see that. We're going to have to let this cool a little bit before we pull those out of there. I'll take it off the coals, we'll set it off to the side and let it cool. And in a second I'll pull one out and show you what they look like. They are going to be delicious, I can tell you. They're campfire sticky buns. See you in a minute.
Hey, don't look at that. I'm zooming in on the bubbliness.
Gotcha. Okay, we've let these cool a few minutes. Ideally, we'd have a wire rack or something like that to blow these out and cool them on. We don't have that, so we're gonna make do. Take your spatula and kind of run it along the outside edge. Loosen up that sugar out there. Get underneath one. Squeeze. I don't have my little tongs, but I'll figure it out. First one's going to be kind of a mess.
Tasty mess.
Tasty mess. Look at that dough, perfectly cooked. Those look awfully good. You can see that sugar's all caramelized there. These are going to be delicious. And as I said, we do have a few pine needles. So it works.
Yeah.
So enjoy. Try this out. Let us know how it works for you. Leave some comments. We'll see you next time on Outdoor Living.